Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Log Talk with Kurt and Your Outdoors. This is your host Billy, and this week's episode is going to be with Greg Fuerst of the Venison Donation Coalition. He is the head honcho over there, and they are a nonprofit that works with hunters and works with venison and meat processors to donate venison to the needy. So pretty cool program. And if you've been following along with us, you know that it's one of the organizations that we worked with as a fundraiser for our beer that we brewed with Windy Brew. So we had the opportunity to connect with Greg, and primarily this discussion is going to be about the Venison Donation Coalition, but we actually talked quite a bit about black bears in the Finger Lakes region, as that is what Greg did in his professional life before he retired, as he was a wildlife biologist with the New York State DEC. So we talked quite a bit about black bears, which I think is fascinating, and we are all seeing many more of them, and it's much more unrare to see a bear if you're out and about pretty much anywhere in New York State now. So pretty cool discussion on that end as well. And but I hope you all take something away from this discussion one way or another. We all can help with the Venison Donation Coalition. It's a great program, a great cause, and it could be something as easy as just donating $1, could go a long ways. But whether it's donating money or donating meat or doing both, there's a lot that we all can do as hunters to help people that are in need, and also make and take advantage of filling those deer tags every year. So great program, great discussion. Hope you enjoy it. A couple updates for you. We are running very low on hats, so I've got about 4 or 5 of the Blaze Orange hats left, and I think maybe 8 or 10 of the Mommy Daddy hat. So make sure you check those out over on the website if you'd like to get one before they're gone. We are flirting with the idea of getting some shirts, whether it be t-shirt, long sleeve, or hoodies. I think we might put together a few different options and then put up a link, and people can put their orders in, and then we'll just place one order with everyone's exact request. So I think that's what we're thinking, just to put that on your radar. I for one would like a long sleeve shirt, because I don't seem to have a ton of long sleeve shirts. I have a lot of t-shirts and a lot of hoodies, but not a lot in between. So just a little heads up there. We'll be working on that. The guys were up in the Adirondacks this weekend at my Uncle Tim's camp for the Northern Zone early muzzleloader opener. So it looks like they had a very successful hunt so far. I'm recording this on Sunday morning, and those guys already got 2 deer on the ground. Cousin Dave shot a doe on Saturday, and Uncle Chris shot a doe today. So congrats to those guys, and I gave Jimbo the podcast equipment, so I hope they got a nice episode together for us that I can post up next week, and hopefully there'll be some good entertainment there for you all. As far as deer activity goes, it's been very interesting over the last 3-4 days to watch. We had that big cold front come through, and a lot of people, including myself, were fired up about what that could do and what opportunity there might be with some deer movement. But it's been very interesting to watch. I think they're definitely in that, I'm not going to say October lull, because I like the theory that that's not really a thing, but it's more of the deer kind of shifting in their patterns, and the bucks putting on, jacking up those testosterone levels and starting to get more territorial and kind of the calm before the storm. So that seems to be happening right now. All of our cell phone cameras, me personally, I've got 13 that I'm looking at, 10 on the farm and 3 up at camp, and all of those cameras have been very consistent in the fact that all the activity we were seeing over the last 2 weeks has really died down, and you're getting some young bucks and some does starting to hit scrapes, but the big bucks have been off of camera for a couple days now. So very interesting. I suspect over the next week that we'll start to see it start to tune up, and I'm for one looking at the 7 days before and the 7 days after Halloween. Halloween is a full moon, and been listening to a lot of podcasts and material about hunting the moon and how that affects deer activity, and just knowing historically how my hunting experiences have been. Halloween seems to be one of the best days for seeking and chasing around here, and especially at our camp in Naples. And then if you putting the full moon on Halloween this year, that should be good. But Mark Drury, I was listening to him on, I think it was Working Class Bow Hunter. He was talking about the 7 days before and the 7 days after that full moon. And I'm really excited to get out this year and test that theory Hopefully we have some good weather to coincide with that and can get out there and hunt a couple middays and try to hunt some of those rising moons and falling moons when they're occurring and line up some of that weather, moon, and opportunity to hunt and try to put a good buck on the ground. So the best is yet to come, folks, and looking forward to that. Thank you for those who have been participating in the Breeding' 'em Radio series. We've got 2 weeks down, some good episodes, some good stories, and look forward to the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that. If you do shoot something and you want to share the story with us, just reach out, and we'd love to get you on and have you share your story. Trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's about it. So thank you, everybody, for your participation. Thanks for listening. You are all awesome. So far, this has been our best month ever, and we're only halfway through. So thank you all so much for everything you do, and look forward to the next couple weeks. Keep feeding them.
Hello.
Yeah, that's your name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really, 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 really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think that of it, because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving, and I'm like, ooh, there's deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
when you're
the ghost, and
275
that's
pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
the Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
yeah,
You know,
he's like,
he's up there slapping, pissing all over everything.
is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's right. I know.
Why did you say his name?
Hervé Villechaize.
You know what pert near means.
If you know what pert near means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pert Near Outdoors. So yeah, it is pretty fascinating. Some of the stuff that, like, that's an incredible stat.
Yeah.
About how rapidly they grow.
Yeah. Well, you figure out they're less than a pound naked and blind at birth.
Yeah.
Mom's sleeping. She's cleaning up all their excrement. She's not excreting anything. Talk about miraculous. The second warmest place in her body is under her neck, where her hair is the thinnest for cleanup. The first warmest place is her mammary glands, her breasts for milk.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're and yet can be pretty doggone damaging, destructive, and or dangerous if provoked.
So when they're giving birth in the den, you're saying she's asleep.
Pretty much. It's not a true hibernation like squirrels, bats, or chipmunks and bats and woodchucks. It's, some call it estivation. It's just a slow down. Everything,
their blood pressure, their heart rate, their breathing, everything slows right down, right?
And yet that fetus is growing inside. There's interest in their biology from the medical society. It'd be kidney failure in us.
Yeah.
If we never passed anything.
Right.
And that would kill us.
Yeah.
And they take that waste and recycle it during hibernation.
It's amazing.
Oh, yeah. Neat
incredible animals. It's like I get into these discussions and there's so much you take for granted, or not take for granted, but so much you're just not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just incredible creatures. And the fact that they can survive and repopulate and thrive doing that, it's incredible.
That we throw at them as humans.
Yeah, right. We're moving into areas and bumping them out of where they live.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite stories, a phone call, I should say. Lady called up and was complaining about the bears bothering them. Just built this new house. And I said, well, you built your house in the woods, didn't you? She says, how'd you know that? I said, well, the bears were there first.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't be bothering you if you built your house in a field.
Yeah. So
you're in their house now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the big challenge we have in this world now, is that we're expanding into all these new areas, and people are living longer and there's bigger communities being built and in areas where there's never been people living in established communities before. I'm sure you've, down in the southern tier. Is that where you're from? Is it in the southern tier?
No, I was born and raised in Lancaster.
Oh, so you're a Buffalo boy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Bills fan comes with your birth certificate.
Yeah, Bills Mafia. It wasn't a mafia at that time.
Right,
That's a millennial thing, but you
had-
guys were real Bills fans.
I still have the black and white pictures of guys like Jim Dunaway, Mike Stratton, Jack Kemp, Darryl
yeah.
LaMonica. They gave you 8 and 10 autographed black and whites at the grocery stores.
No kidding.
And I still got them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. So, yeah, born and raised in Lancaster and was bouncing around with the state 6-7 years. Ended up in Bath, which Steuben County is deer capital of New York, if you will.
Yeah.
But it's a huge county, too. So yeah, a lot of deer work, a lot of bears, beaver, bluebirds. The bear work I miss.
Yeah.
They were neat.
Well, I guess I'll introduce who I'm talking to. I'm talking to Greg Fuerst. So Greg is here. We're going to talk primarily about the Venison Donation Coalition. That's what's brought us together today.
Right.
But it turns out we have a pretty good amount of history together in our family with you, which I recognized the name when I heard it, but I couldn't put it together. And then when we started chatting on the phone, I was like, oh my God, we've literally spent time together before.
That's right. Yeah.
So
beeping the bears, as we would call it.
Yep. So we just kind of started talking a little bit about your what you did with the state. So you grew up in Buffalo. Did you go to college for ecology or
Morrisville
biology?
Natural Resources. Yeah. I was actually an apprentice drywall finisher in the suburbs of Buffalo and Grand Island, and just thought, wow, do I really want to do this the rest of my life? And some people may not remember the show Wild Kingdom, but I was teased students I would talk to that was addicted to Wild Kingdom. And Jim was the guy that always got to wrestle the alligator or the bear. And as a technician, that's what you do. You're not at a desk.
Yep. So that was kind of, so you ended up going to Morrisville. You graduated. Did you start right away with the state or?
Well, seasonal jobs, 74 through 79, 5-6 years. You bounce around wherever there's seasonal openings. They hire for 6 months, do a good job. You get invited back. Wait until somebody retires, if you're lucky.
You get your opportunity, Yeah, I hear that. Like, there's a lot of guys my age and a little bit younger in their mid-20s that are trying to find their way in to the DEC, and a lot of them that I've talked to, it is that they're working these seasonal jobs, whether it's on the forestry side or it's on the wildlife management side. They're trying to get in, but it's not constant work right off the bat.
Yeah, a lot more competitive than, I date myself back to the 70s when it was, well, should I get a bachelor's degree? Well, now the technicians list has PhDs and masters that are still attempting to get their foot in the door.
No kidding.
You're not going to get rich at it. It's going to be a rewarding career, and there's now also a lot more private agencies that do different environmental work other than just.
So it's like contracted out
jobs.
Environmental work.
Well, not necessarily contracted out. Yeah, they have the ability to do it, and DEC in New York has become more regulatory. It used to be nothing but game wardens, foresters, and wildlife and fish. Well, now it's, those units are pretty low on the totem pole as far as staffing and priorities. Everything is so regulatory. Windmills, smokestacks, recycling. It's good stuff, yet it's a big agency.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's changed. The DEC's changed a lot over the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah, the old conservation department, I think, changed in 1972 or so, right around there, to become environmental conservation, which, so it's very different.
Became more broad in scope and not so much just focused on the animals and the fishery and things like that.
Which is, you got to keep pace, as you were saying, as the population of humans. I used to preach to the little kids at field days, if some of you remember from 6th grade. New York's nothing but a big aquarium. There's only so much room for people, wildlife, trees, and swamps. You know? And the more crowded it gets, the tougher the job gets to balance all that.
Absolutely. So you got into the bear side of things, and that's where you and I had collided back almost 20 years ago now.
Is it that long?
Yeah, because it would have been probably 04, 03, 04, I would have been doing those ride-alongs, those apprentice things, or trying to figure out. It might have been close to my senior year, so it was mid 2003, 4, 5, somewhere in there.
Yep.
But I had gotten connected with you because my grandfather, and I had just talked about it on a recent podcast we did talking about our family bear hunt. My grandpa's the one that got us all into bear hunting. He was infatuated with it, very interested in the growth of the bear populations in New York State. So he would go to seminars in the Adirondacks, and he was just very engaged with that. And my grandfather is the one that he originally had gotten in touch with you, Bill Harvey.
Okay.
So he had gotten in touch with you somehow, and you were doing den visits.
Yep.
During you said it was like January-ish. You go and do the den visits or whenever the weather was appropriate.
Yeah, we were typically waiting for those cubs to be 8 pounds or so. So it was usually early March.
Yep.
They weren't out and about yet, and you could safely handle them as long as you handled mom. So yeah, we were doing den visits as an educational tool because the bear population was rapidly expanding. And where did all the pheasant habitat go? Well, that was in the 50s, and the stone fence that you see in the middle of the 75-year-old oak woods is now bear habitat.
It's true.
And fishers and bobcats. So as the habitat changed, so came the bears. All the way to Lake Ontario now.
Yeah. So we our family, like after you and I had talked 3 weeks ago, whenever that was, I had called my dad and I was like, "You're never going to believe it." I go, "That Greg Fuerst, does that name ring a bell to you?" And he's sitting there racking his mind. I go, DEC, den checks. And he's like, "No way." So I tell him how I connected with you.
Yeah.
And then he started telling me stories because he had gone on a couple with you, with my brother. I don't think I ever went on a den check with you, but my grandfather went on a couple. My Uncle Mike and my dad and my brother went on a couple with you. And it's so funny how, I was telling you this on the phone, it's so funny how small of a world it is when you start talking with people. And it's like, you just come around these full circles, and here we are talking about something totally different, but we had an interaction together so many years ago.
Right. Yeah.
And then I did the ride along with you because I was kind of thinking, I was always interested in the environment and the outdoors, but I was more interested in other things. But I was trying to figure out my career path, so I had an option of what I wanted to do with one of my ride-alongs, and I rode with you.
Yeah.
And that was I fondly remember that day.
Yeah.
Meeting up. I think we met up somewhere down in Dansville, right off 390.
Yeah.
And we went for a ride somewhere down south of there towards Nunde or Short Track.
Yeah, that was the focus area, northern Steuben. They were kind of the leading edge of the bear expansion, and once they discovered there was adult females there, that population was set.
Yeah.
And it was going to grow. So, yeah, Finger Lakes Community College at the time actually began with working with the students and ourselves at the agency, Black Bear 1 and 2 as a special course that was an elective I believe students could take.
Okay.
So, yeah. Yeah, the deeper the roots go with people's interest, the more, I think, the smaller the world becomes.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're here at the house. We were planning on doing this outside at a park just because it has been great weather.
Yeah.
But today we got like high wind warnings and it's nasty out. So we're here at the house, in which I'm kind of happy because you got to come here.
Yeah.
So the bear that I shot in 2010, you have history with that bear too.
Right. Yeah. I haven't seen her in many years.
Yeah. So it's cool. It's cool for you to see that. It's cool to hear the stories from you and kind of the history on that, because that's a very special bear to me. Obviously, it's my only bear I've ever shot.
Mm-hmm.
She was 9 years old. You had history with her basically from almost her very young, early years. You had history with her.
Absolutely.
And it was the first legal bear shot in Ontario County.
Yeah.
So like we're sitting here and I got the article that the Canandaigua News wrote about it, and which talks about our family history with bear hunting. And
I was going to say, Daily Message. I recognize the author's name there, Julie Sherwood, is it?
Yeah, what is it?
Right there below.
Oh yeah,
counties.
Yep, Julie Sherwood. Yep.
Yeah. She did a lot of good press for us.
Yeah, they have a nice little paper there. I haven't followed it in years, but so it's pretty cool, and some of the, like you were telling me, the couple that bear story you told me upstairs about that bear that was kind of a nuisance up near the lake,
right
up in Brockport.
Yeah,
tell that story because that's a pretty wild story.
We were receiving a lot of complaints about a bear way up north, right on Lake Ontario shoreline, Salmon Creek, I believe. So backyards, and he bluff charged a couple people, and he stood there and watched an elderly lady feed her bird feeder. And when they get that friendly, that's when you got to be concerned. They've lost their fear of humans, and they associate the human odors and people with food instead of fear, and that's a dangerous situation. So we trapped that bugger, brought him down to High Tor Wildlife Area in Naples. 6,000 acres full of oak. You thought he'll be happy. 2 nights later, he's on the Brockport campus celebrating Halloween with the students. So
It wasn't somebody in a bear costume.
no, it wasn't. They might have thought that until they realized.
Yeah.
But then a little later, he just wasn't going anywhere, and he was found literally in the backyard of a new home where the people had cleared an acre and left the large brush pile in the back. So airplanes are a good tool to use when you can't find a bear. So we found him. He was sleeping, and he woke up in the Adirondacks. Make a long story short.
Yeah.
So,
And he didn't come back.
no. He could wander a lot farther up there, and it's been bear habitat for forever in New York. So
Yeah.
hopefully he was more at home. Not going to bother anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that's fascinating to me. And over the last few years, you're seeing more and hearing more in the news of bears being up in Monroe County and even out west here, up in Erie County. They've had a couple that have been up in North Buffalo. And talk a little bit about that. Like, is that typically? It's usually you see that in the spring, or late spring, early summer.
Yeah, when they emerge, they're hungry and there's not a lot of food, and these big monstrous bears literally survive on the first green stuff to sprout. Spring seeps that are full of cowslips or wetlands that have not a lot of thick ice that all of a sudden they green up a little earlier. So, yeah, garbage cans, bird feeders can all be very, very good sources, and they can be easily habituated, and that's when the danger gets a little higher risk for the bear as well as the people. I mean, they appear gentle. They don't want to be around us. They're shy typically, but you get them accustomed to a bird feeder or an intentional food pile every night, they're going to be there. And I've had people show me videos of the grandkids 5 feet from the bears, and it's just like, people, really? You got to think about what you're doing here.
Yeah.
Because as neat as they are, as shy as they can be, to defend themselves and their offspring, you don't want to mess with them.
No.
And one swat and the dog is done.
Yeah.
Or a human. That's a creature to respect and don't mess with, and by all means, don't feed the birds.
Yeah, if you know there's bears around, take your bird feeders down.
Right.
Don't create a habitual thing for them to keep coming back to.
It's just, killing them with kindness. Because that was one of the worst things I ever had to do. Kill a few different bears that had been so habituated they started breaking through windows and things.
Yeah.
And it's not the bear's fault.
No.
So.
Yeah, you just got to be conscious about it. You go to the Adirondacks, Old Forge area, for the last many, many years.
Right.
It's been a big problem, and you can tell on years when there's poor mass crop.
Exactly.
There's just a flood of nuisance bears around the camping areas and everything. And this year there was issues up in the North Country, like up in the high peaks, where there was just so much traffic from people at all these lean-tos and campsites because of COVID. Everybody's getting outside.
Right.
That then next thing you know, you've got people leaving garbage, and then there's bears that are hanging around campsites. It's not good for anybody.
No.
So you have to be conscious about that.
Yep.
And you give them a reason to come, they're gonna keep coming back.
Yeah. There's another little slogan: "Fed bear's a dead bear." And then too, as long as we're talking about bears so much here, if you look in your hunting and trapping guides, we actually produced a movie, and that's available on DVD that you can either get through your public library or contact the DEC. The information's in there, but it was just about that.
Okay.
Living with New York black bears, I believe it's titled. And it was an educational effort to say to folks, their numbers are increasing. They're going to encompass, or they will survive in the entire state. They just are so adaptable. So beware, learn about them.
Yep.
And enjoy them for the magnificent creature that they are, because they sure are amazing animals.
Yep. Now, the one thing I wanted before we move on to the venison side of it, what I was poking at with seeing them further north here towards the lake and getting up from what we would now consider a more common range down towards the Finger Lakes and south into the southern tier. What are they getting pushed out? I've heard this before, but I'm just curious your perspective. Like the young males are a lot of times what you see way off in areas where you wouldn't necessarily see them. Are they getting bumped away from the den as mom's getting ready to breed again?
Oh, yeah.
And she's pushing them off?
Yeah.
Is that what's happening there?
She drives them out rather aggressively, and that was part of what we were learning. Females, the bears will breed every second year. So as a cub, they den with their mom the first year. So they emerge at 1 year old or a year and a half. She starts getting into the breeding season. She literally drives her offspring away because males that are pursuing her might picture her offspring as competition. She'll tolerate offspring females territories will overlap. Those young males, they just the hormones kick in and they're going to wander aimlessly, and they're the ones typically in the garbage cans and the bird feeders. And
they're the troublemakers.
Yeah, there's more.
They'll be walking from Honeoye to Brockport in 2 days.
Yep, there's more legs than there are body to them, and they a lanky, gangly teenage bear that's been kicked out by his mother doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So that disperse, and that's actually genetically good.
Yeah. It spreads out
the
population.
I collared a 520-pound male up by Keuka Lake, and he was photographed in Caton, which is south of Corning, darn near to the Pennsylvania border.
Oh, my God.
And when you looked at the ridges, as you can if you look at aerial photography, the big ridges and the Appalachian Plateau that extends up into that Honeoye, Hemlock Lake watershed area, it's all wooded. It's a corridor.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a funnel right to Rochester.
Yeah. And they naturally just follow that.
Yeah. And it's amazing once you learn where they travel. It's like there's bare roads that, whether they're born there or they move into there, they use those same corridors.
Yeah.
For whatever reason it is, it's comfortable for them.
Yeah. It was fascinating when I shot her, the bear upstairs. I was tracking her because we had snow that day, and it was we had kind of a harsh November, and I don't know if she had gone in or maybe started to think about denning up, but then we had snow on the ground, and then it was a beautiful December day, and it was like 35 degrees, and there was bear tracks all over everywhere. Like we drove, there was so much snow on the hill, we couldn't get up to the top of the hill that day. So my brother and I and my cousin, we drove around the bottom of the hill, and around the base of the hill, there's a road that runs all the way around the base, and we walked up the backside, and this is a logging road up in the woods, and there was bear tracks. We were just crossing bear tracks going up and down the hill, and we're like, what is going on here? So on my way, we were kind of late getting to the tree stand. On the way to the tree stand, I saw up you could see in the deep snow, like it looked like boot prints, So I went up there, and that bear, I don't know if she had seen me coming or what it was, but the tracks stopped, and so that kind of caught my attention. It was just odd. Like the tracks were to here, and they didn't go anywhere else. So there was only one set of tracks. That bear was walking in its own footprints.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like I followed it, and I texted my brother. I'm like, Jimmy, there's like really fresh bear tracks here. And he's like, well, where are you? I'm like, I'm in the tree stand. He's like, well, get out of the tree stand and get on those tracks. So this is like 7:15 in the morning or whatever. And I followed them. I ended up shooting her around midday.
Yeah.
But it was wild following her because she was literally, it was like trippy trying to figure out like where is she going, because there was a couple spots where she stopped and she was tearing some bark off of dead trees on the ground. And just trying to keep track of where she was going, because the tracks were in each other, like going back and forth.
Yeah, you can learn so much following those tracks. And her offspring, they're right in those same foot tracks as she was. So throw a little bit of regulation at you. To harvest a bear, they had to be alone and in a group. So that basically protects the sow and her cubs. So the only time a sow would be alone is a year after she's gotten rid of her yearlings and has been bred and will be going to a den and given birth in the middle of the winter.
Right.
So picture going in the den November 15th, Females usually go down first, especially the impregnated ones, and then having a litter with a very short gestation of 60 days. And in the middle of January, those cubs are born. So, yeah, pretty interesting animal.
Yeah,
So, yeah, being 9 years old, assuming her first litter was 3, she may have bred again at age 4 because she lost her first litter. We know that.
Yeah.
So every other year, typically they'll have cubs 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. Then you're getting into some pretty big girls that we've documented having up to 5 cubs.
No kidding.
Yeah, that's a sign of the
They can handle they can handle that
at the older
physically.
ages. Yeah, the bear you had at age 3 had a litter of 3. Well, they simply didn't produce it. She didn't produce enough milk, and she lost the litter. So
Yeah.
typically the younger bears, 1 the first year, maybe 2 the second year. But what we found in Steuben and the bears we were following, the habitat's so good, their first litters commonly were 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And up to 4 or 5. And that's a lot of bears. It's going to multiply in
very
a hurry.
quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't take long.
Yeah, neat animal.
Yep. So at turning this into the Venison Donation Coalition, how did that all start? Like, where did this organization come from? Were you involved in that?
Yeah, I was. Had it been maybe late 1990s, the state DEC Bureau of Wildlife held a series of statewide meetings, the future of deer hunting, open to the public. We want to hear what you foresee, what you'd like. And it was a common suggestion from all of the meetings statewide that sportsmen were very interested in having a venison donation program that they didn't have to pay for. The legislation actually passed in '93, allowing donation of big game to charitable organizations feeding those in need. So it was, like sportsmen, a lot of little projects popping up here and there. Hey, my buddy's a processor. Let's get some guys together. We'll help them cut them up, take them over to the local pantry. And that was working. It was small scale. At the same time, sportsmen came and said they wanted venison donation they didn't have to pay for. The deer herd was burgeoning. 2002, 2003, I think, takes were way, way up. Crop damage was rampant in agricultural areas. The third year of the Venison Donations Coalition, 103,000 pounds was donated.
My God.
Yeah. And that had started with 1,000 pounds 4 years earlier. So it wanted to fly. The state saw it as a management tool, get people in areas where additional harvest of antlerless deer is necessary. So they actually funded it with grants first 10 years. And then the food banks all agreed. They picked it all up and distributed it through their network of food pantries, soup kitchens, veterans programs, Meals on Wheels, seniors programs. It was very popular. So it wanted to happen, and I was asked if I'd like to try to see what it would take. And there was a lot of other agencies that were offering manpower and time, cooperative extensions. There was an organization through the USDA, Resource Conservation Development Councils. They were the bookkeepers and grant writers. We had the DEC, whose staff are in deer meat lockers all season long. We knew the processors.
Mm-hmm.
And the food banks, that was their business, distributing food.
Yeah.
So it was, I come together in a hurry and it wanted to happen. And here we are, 20 years later, still averaging 35 tons per year.
Wow.
And it's slipping a little bit. And the processors, as you guys all know,
less and less of them, it seems like.
Yeah, many family businesses that, we had folks that, they work at Tops or Wegmans and Price Chopper, and they're cutting deer all night and putting their kids through college.
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden, there's no interest, and small businesses are tougher and tougher to maintain these days. The cost of everything goes up and up and up.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, they're kind of like a small dairy farm in my comparison of, family-operated businesses and people that are important to all of us.
Yeah.
So, the cooperating deer processors that are hanging in there, they're working at below their rates. We're able to pay $2 a pound, but a lot of them are getting more than that for the retail guy that walks in with a deer. So,
yeah.
So, it's historically been fun to work with. I guess I was considered one of the founders, but it was something very enjoyable because it was so positive. It was deer management. It was feeding people. It was helping sportsmen play their role as a steward of the resource.
Yeah.
And I would dare say that when you donate deer, it starts your season off on the right foot.
Yeah.
It helps you realize that, hey, I just fed 160 people, and now I'm going to get to go spend some more time in the woods and harvest one of the 9 tags I can get.
Yeah, right.
You know, so
right.
it's like,
there's no limit to the opportunity here in New York, you know. So
exactly.
The number of conversations I've had since we started working with you guys on this beer project, the amount of my friends that I've talked to and family members are like, oh, you know, I heard of it, but I didn't really know much about it. They're like, I would totally shoot an extra doe. Just like a lot of everybody, not everybody does this, but a lot of people, they judge what they shoot based off of how much they can eat.
Right.
So if they knew there of an easy way to have that meat go somewhere, we all love killing deer. We're passionate about hunting. We're passionate about managing our herds around us, and we live for this 2.5 months out of the year.
Right.
But if you tap out and it's like, well, I've already got 3 deer in the freezer. My family and we can't eat more than that, so that'd be wasteful to go out and shoot another one. But if you can, jump into a program like yours and support people, like it's a very rewarding thing. And I can understand why you jumped onto it. You talked about how those different areas, you're helping conservation, you're helping feed people, and I forget what the third one was. You had something else, but there's like you're
a steward. You're being a good steward of the resource.
Yeah.
And that's what sportsmen are, but we don't broadcast that.
We don't do a very good job.
Look at what we're doing
Right.
and what we've done since the early 1900s. We've hunted deer in New York since 1940.
Yeah.
And we are the actual managers. The sportsmen are.
Yeah.
I'm sure we have an agency that regulates it and does the research to tell us here's how many deer we need to harvest in 9P or 9X or 8T or, the Adirondacks don't have antlerless harvest. The winters control the deer herd.
Right.
So, but yeah, if a lot of people aren't, they email the website and say, do I get another tag if I donate a deer? If you participate in all the possible seasons, you can harvest 7 deer. If you participate in the deer management assistance program on the farms, you have opportunity for another 2 to 4 more deer.
Right.
And there's a direct contact to helping somebody else, the farmers.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
And the hunters don't go look at the crops in August. I did.
And it's amazing, isn't it?
And the cost of putting those things in the ground.
Yeah.
And then when you're losing 20, sometimes I was seeing up to 40% of a crop because the deer herd locally or however widespread it might be was surviving on those crops.
Yeah.
So it was always interesting to me, and I actually kind of felt like a referee a few times in a boxing ring. I'd get the sportsmen who were complaining about the farmer's damage permits together with the farmer in August. Well, let's go look at these soybeans. Let's look at these grapes. Let's look at this orchard. And sportsmen' eyes were open that, hey, yeah. So, and on the other side of the story, the educational process was the farmers leasing their land or allowing a group of hunters, but they don't shoot does. But then they're calling us, the agency, about the damage. It's like, wait a minute here.
Yeah.
These guys ought to be required to harvest the does.
Yeah.
Then, help me with my damage, and then we can shoot some bucks.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, going back a couple minutes, you mentioned like 2002 that like the deer population was really like burgeoning or peaking.
Right.
It seemed like around that time there was a little bit of a change in the management plan from the state as far as more doe tags being issued. Because for the longest time, which I guess maybe this was because the deer population wasn't where it needed to be, but I remember growing up young, my dad and his brothers in the hunting party, that they didn't have the ability to get doe tags. There'd be a party permit situation where you get one doe tag, but you'd hear stories about how many deer they were seeing.
Right.
But they weren't getting tags to shoot very many deer. So it almost seems like there's been a little bit of a transition in the management plan from the DEC about how many does to be harvested and how to manage a population properly
Yeah.
So you have a balance.
It's a loaded, easy question or not easy, difficult question to just answer because there's a lot that goes into that. But what a lot of people don't realize, and I alluded to this earlier, the technicians and biologists are crawling around the meat lockers with the dead deer. Those are dead deer with your tag on them. Then, however many of those deer that we record the license number and the unit it came from, you have a harvest composition. Does, fawns, we age them 1 through 10.
Mm-hmm.
So you're remodeling you're reconstructing the harvested portion of the population. Then you match up the reports that we all are so good about doing in Albany, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to recalculate the missing deer
that aren't there based off of what
Exactly.
you're saying was harvested and what was alive.
We know what was dead.
Right.
And then you send us in, let's say I checked 1,000 deer, which we used to do that many deer, and only 500 matched up with the reports in Albany. We've got to calculate what those remaining 50% of the harvest was.
What they were. So you're taking averages and estimates to figure out whether was it a yearling, was it a fawn, was it a doe.
Right. It was statistically tested to be 3 or 4% accurate, which that was not the DEC, not the state doing their own study.
Yeah.
So it's an accurate system. But there's so many small pockets. You see how these DMUs might have been bigger, now they're smaller. We've got hunting opportunity around Rochester, bow only. We're now having focus areas down around Ithaca and those areas, extended seasons.
Yeah, into January. And,
yeah, so it's hard to boil that down and get the hunters access to specific areas that are a lot more finite than they used to be.
Yeah.
You know, it's statewide. It was a lot easier. Weren't as many people. Public access to properties was easier. And now we got the deer that learn where to go.
Yeah, it's safe over here.
Yeah.
But so what I'm hearing you saying is how incredibly important good data is.
Yeah.
You know, as a hunter, and I'll be honest, I was not very good about this in my early years.
Mm-hmm.
Many of us weren't, and maybe that's part of the reason why the management plan was structured the way it was, because you might be filling tags, but you're not calling them in, or you're not going online and submitting them. But the DEC has made it so easy now with technology that you can literally on a mobile app just record what tag you filled in a minute's time.
Right.
And then you're helping the DEC understand what the take is, what the deer numbers are.
You're fulfilling.
So you have to become active participant in that system if you want.
Right.
And that's what I think you learn that with maturity. When you're younger, it's just like you're just running around.
Right.
But you start to pay attention to this stuff. You start to get a little bit older, and you want to see action, or you want to see certain results.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not participating in that system,
right? Yeah, and the data is there. I mean, now a lot of it, so much of it's online, and you can access it and see it. You know, and how many of you ever? We used to have it's a 100-year deer management book. It's not 100 years, but whatever.
Yeah.
It had every square mile habitat, how much was ag land, what the antlerless harvest was, what the buck rate per square mile harvest was.
Wow.
And so all these guys want to look at the big numbers, but there's tiny counties out there, Yates,
right, yeah,
with buck harvests that knock your socks off, but because it's not showing a huge kill, nobody wants to look at that.
They're not paying that much attention to
Yeah,
it.
so that data is out there. And just the fact that so many of the guys that email us are looking for a replacement tag, again, they don't understand, what do you mean 9 deer? Yeah, just buy all the licenses, participate in the season, help a farmer, ask to go shoot some does for him.
Yeah.
And if he has the deer management assistance permits, those are doe tags for his farm only. Mm-hmm. And you can shoot an additional 2 deer there.
And each individual can harvest 2. Correct?
Right. There's some units they're now allowing 4.
Really?
There's a new proposal on the table. We've recently had DEC come to us and say we've got some units in the Lake Plains. We can't get it under control after 4 years. How can we help you guys and increase donations? Well, that would all be fine and dandy. We're strapped right now with processing fees.
Yeah.
Our guys are working below the retail rates, and when we do 70,000 pounds at $2 a pound, you do the math.
Yeah.
And We need some help
So
financially.
funding's a huge piece of that.
Right. So, and to be the manager, to be the steward, I always encourage guys, donate that first deer.
Yeah.
It's an excuse to keep hunting.
Yeah.
So many times I hear, well, I'll get one for my freezer. Well, all of a sudden, wifey wants to go Christmas shopping, and you're not hunting as much because you've already got one.
Right. Yeah.
But,
it's hard to argue that.
It's my little personal soapbox. You
Yeah.
know, donate those first few does. And
Well, in this time of year, it's so challenging unless you have access to a cooler or if you're taking it to a processor.
Exactly.
We've battled that for years and years and years because we process our own deer. Is somebody shoots a deer on opening night and it's 70 degrees out.
Right.
What do you do?
Yep.
You know, so you're trying to figure out, you know, you're going to chop it up and throw it in the refrigerator, take it and donate it.
There you go.
So let's you kind of laid the groundwork on the background of Venison Donation Coalition, how you got involved. So let's talk about the two big things, the funding of it and how people can help with that, and also how do you know where you can take your deer to be processed?
Okay. Well, first off, we were very surprised. 1999, we got things started. By 2003, I was saying we were up to over 100,000 pounds. The deer herd is burgeoning. The counties are coming in. We're providing donations to or through 56 different counties with 110 processors scattered around the state. Some areas like the Adirondacks, there's not a lot of deer harvest, so there's not a lot of processors. So as all that's happening, the deer herd is changing and processors are leaving, and the need for the funding becomes greater every year because when you operate on 5-year grants, some year that's not going to get renewed and you're going to be up the creek.
Yeah.
And in the midst of all of that, legislation, thanks, I believe mostly I'm part of Farm Bureau, New York Farm Bureau, allowed hunters to donate $1 or more when they buy their license. It's called DECALS, DEC's Automated Licensing System.
Yeah.
If I ever told you, it's embarrassing to me as a sportsman, that out of the 500,000 hunting licenses sold, we get $4,000.
Oh, my God.
Everybody sees it as a state money grab.
Yeah.
It's not. The coalition, Venison Donation Coalition, is a not-for-profit 501c3 incorporated. Board members, 11 of us, most of us are deer hunters, and a lot of volunteer time goes into the effort. We've got local helpers scattered throughout the state, Rockland County, Lewis County, Erie County. You know, there's
Everywhere.
guys I can reach out to that want to help, and they do. And a lot of them can't do it financially. But if we could all just remember, because the clerk's not going to ask you to donate $1. They all forget. They want to get you out of the way because there's 10 guys behind you. And maybe the computer's working.
Yeah.
So if 500,000 hunters even threw in 50 cents each, that would fund the program annually.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of money. As I said, $2 a pound. It should be closer to $3. To get these guys up to their retail rates. It was $1. And to lose processors because, hey, I can cut other deer and make twice as much money. You know, that's a tough decision from them, too. Yeah,
Right.
it's a business decision. From their hearts, many of them don't want to do it. It's just logistics. They can't do it for less than it's costing them to do it.
Yeah.
So I would encourage everybody, remember to tell the license agent, whether it's your town clerk or the kid in Walmart, I want to donate $1.
Yep.
Or send us a check right at venisondonation.com.
So you can do that if somebody wants to.
Yes. Or PayPal. We have PayPal on our website. We were surprised to find the domain name of venisondonation.com was available, and we've had that for 20 years. So it's very simple.
Nice.
Even if you live out in Utah and you Google Venison Donation, you're going to get us. So Venison Donation Coalition, venisondonation.com, toll-free phone number, email, do a check or a donation through PayPal. We've recently gone through some rankings by different charities, Guide Star charity ranking. We're a bronze. We're reputable. We are good. We spend your money trying to process deer.
And it's pretty, I know this year I bought my license online with the new decal system, and it was very, very easy, and it was nice. They put it right there in front of you, and I did donate this year. I think I donated $5.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's very easy, you know. So
Right.
I think as more people, you probably don't. Do you have the data yet this year from what you've received from that process?
Well,
or
when the decals goes in to the clerk, when your donation goes there, it goes to DEC. It is legislated into a separate fund, which is part of the conservation fund. We request it in January when deer hunting seasons have ended, so we typically don't see that. But I see the list of every person that donates $1. You could go up to 100 or 1,000 if you want.
whatever you feel good about. Yeah.
Just the trick is tell the license agent I want to do that.
Yeah. I'll just be interested to see if having the online system go live this year, if you'll see more donations just because it was right there in front of you and easy to just say, yeah, I'll throw a few dollars in there.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's the case, and I am optimistic because I'm hearing all kinds of things that hunting license sales are through the roof.
Yeah.
So the other thing we do know, when you used to call in, see, the state contracts with different vendors to produce the system.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it changes every 5 years. So this is another new vendor, if you will. Previously, when you called a toll-free license number to buy a license, you were calling a company in Arizona.
Yeah.
Those clerks were trained to ask the question. The return rate on the dollar when the question was asked was like 95%.
Right.
So
just asking is your salesperson. You just got to ask for the sale.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
We used to send all kinds of stickers and rack cards to the license agents. It was costing us more to do that because there's close to 2,000 license agents in the state. And now the town clerks have an opportunity to drop out. They used to be required to sell licenses, and now if they choose not to, they don't have to. So that my town clerk, my local community, my local pantry, my supporting local stuff is kind of gone.
Yeah.
Or it's dwindling, let's say. So yeah, it's important if everybody would donate $1. We'd have $500,000. We could pay the processors, and we'd probably feed twice as many people.
Yeah.
Every deer feeds about 160 people.
Wow. That's pretty amazing.
Yes. So your buck will feed 2 people.
That's awesome.
Pun intended. Buck.
Yeah. Or your doe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, doe.
Or
money,
the dollar you donate.
The dollar you
there
donate.
You go.
Yep.
That buck.
Yep. That I think that's great, and I'm glad to be putting this out there because I just think a lot of people just don't know. I know you guys market. I know your stuff. I see it in the game regs book from New York State. I see it in the outdoor news. But I just think we're in this world where everything's just moving so fast, and unless you take a second and stop and ask a question, you're like, I've seen it. I recognize the name. I just don't know anything about it because I didn't take the time to read about it.
Yeah.
So I hope that people listening to this, that this will speak to them and interest them. And I can tell you from doing the beer, as soon as I tell people what the proceeds are going to, they don't care what they're paying.
Right.
They're like, oh yeah, because we're selling the 4-packs to be able to make the money. Windy Brew, the brewery, for them in order to make that money to give the donation and cover themselves as well.
Right.
That we're selling them for $20 a 4-pack. That's a lot for a 4-pack of beer. Yeah. But people are not even blinking at it because they know where that money's going.
Well, I think, and I attribute some of that to COVID. We've all been sort of forced to slow down. Realize the blessings you have in your family, the abilities to hunt, to own guns, to pursue different things outside, away from everybody else.
Right.
That's hint, hint.
Social distance
social.
outside. Yeah.
I've been doing that for 50 years when I started bow hunting. That's kind of comes with the territory of being a wildlife guy. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were on your own out in the woods.
Yeah.
You weren't getting all the viruses because you were out running away from everybody.
Rabies hit. There's a whole nother subject.
Yeah?
When the raccoon rabies hit New York, we were the first.
When was that, like the mid-90s?
92. Stu had the first positive. A sick raccoon wandering around the school that had actually bit a kid that never came.
Which school?
Addison.
Addison,
yeah.
No kidding. That explains a lot of the kids down in Addison. There's a lot of problems down there. Hopefully Mike Hearn listens to this. So he was probably bit by a rabid raccoon.
Oh, boy.
That would explain a lot of things.
Yeah. But, yeah, it's the venison donation has truly been something I would have never thought of as, having the privilege to do it as part of my career. and to have it succeed so easily and make so many friends and people that want to help. And like you say, we've always struggled with awareness. And, an example of the kind of costs we experience, that half-page color ad in the syllabus retails for $4,000. Well, you can dicker it down to $2,400 if the publisher in Massachusetts is willing to help you and understand your cause. But those are the kinds of things we face, and it's similar with processors. And you advertise the cost of paper, the cost of shrink wrap, staffing, disposing of their waste. That's all the costs are going through the ceiling on those guys. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's where hopefully with the times changing and the way that people are communicating, you guys are getting in social media, trying to have more of a presence there, like doing stuff like this on a podcast and talking about it and getting it out to a new crowd or people listening to it. And, maybe it'll just be good. Maybe you can cut back on some of those half-page advertisements and save yourself a little money there and make, maybe spend money advertising in other ways where you're communicating out.
Well, we're very optimistic and excited. 2018, Trent Murphy, the Buffalo Bills, all of a sudden I got a letter. Your charity's been chosen by a Buffalo Bill for my cause, my cleats.
Yeah.
And I was like, who's pulling my leg on this one, And sure enough, the cleats that the players wear on that game day get auctioned off by the NFL, and the proceeds, like selling your beer, goes to the Venison Coalition. So I have a pair of size 15 Venison donation spikes from Trent Murphy. That's
pretty awesome.
If anybody wants to buy them for a minimum of $500, they're for sale.
Nice.
And the proceeds will go to the Venison Donation Coalition.
Yeah.
So then 2019, he did the same thing. So for the past 2 years, Trent has been very supportive, and he's now officially a spokesman and on our board of directors.
That's awesome.
So, we're kind of happy to have him along. And like you say, the social media thing, and we've looked into some marketing help and strategic planning to say, we really need to change the way we do business. Maybe reboot. You hear a lot of that with COVID. We're rebooting.
Right.
Well, our effort needs to be paying these processors their proper retail rates so we can continue to increase the number of people we feed on an annual,
Yeah.
So 70,000 pounds, quarter pounders, we feed 280,000 people.
That's amazing.
Every year.
Yeah.
Sportsmen that participate should pat themselves on the back. If they don't participate, join the fun.
Yeah.
It's a great, great feeling.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yep.
So, shout out to Trent. Trent follows us, so we've interacted with him on social media a little bit, and it's cool what he's doing with you guys, and that he's not from this area. He's from
Phoenix, Arizona.
So it's cool for him to be engaging in the community, and I think the Buffalo Bills do a great job with that. I give them a lot of credit because I see I'm sure other organizations and other cities do that, but the Bills are very engaged in the community, and it's cool to see. You don't typically see a lot of athletes in the outdoor realm. They might do it, but they don't show themselves doing it, and Trent's all about that.
Yep.
So it's pretty cool. It's cool to have that, and it's awesome that he's on your guys' board and can help out and have some input and help grow awareness of what you guys are up to.
Yeah.
I guess kind of in the last question of that two-parter was, we talked about the financial side of it. So knowing where to go, how do you know that? What's the best way to find out which processor in your area is participating in the program?
Right. VenisonDonation.com. Find a processor. You can search by county.
Okay.
Or up above that, you can choose download the entire list, which I always recommend people do. That way, if it's on your way to a hunting, it doesn't have to be 2 blocks from your house. It can be, over the hill in the next county, wherever you live, wherever you're going to hunt. Send a buddy home with a deer who's close to a participating processor.
Mm-hmm.
Call those guys ahead. You alluded to it earlier. If it's warm and it's 70 and their coolers are full, they may choose to turn down your deer, whether you're a regular hunter or a guy that wants to donate one. So call ahead, participating processors, which you find the list on our website. Drop it off. Processing's free. And if you want a receipt, because it can be the meat itself can be declared as a charitable contribution.
Okay, and there's no out of pocket to the hunter. No. So that's a huge thing for people to know.
Exactly. I would warn you show up with a small deer that's going to yield 20 pounds instead of the average of 40, that processor does have the right to ask for a surcharge.
Okay.
So he may say, well, I'm only going to get 20 pounds out of
Because he's going to get paid by the pound.
Exactly.
Okay.
He's paid by the pound.
You hear that? Dad, don't be shooting freaking yippers this year and donating them.
So,
Us Bill Harveys are known to misjudge. I haven't done it in a few years, but Dad's the guy in our camp that will shoot the biggest deer and he'll shoot the littlest deer.
them little guys are
If
tender.
they're alone, it's hard to judge. That's his excuse.
And if the older you get, they're a lot easier to drag too.
Yeah.
Or pick up and carry.
Yeah, the stories with my dad are just great. Like,
Well,
that's
that's-
literally it. Like, he's the big buck killer, but he's the littlest deer killer too.
Yeah. Well, that's the camaraderie, I think, is important to all of us. And I see your grandfather and your dad, and I'm in the process of buying lifetime licenses for my 4 grandsons who
Awesome.
are between 2 months and 6 years old. So
Oh, you're busy, Grandpa.
yeah, buy those lifetime licenses between 0 and 4.
Yeah.
And even if they lose the state, they come home with all.
What is it?
if they
It's
leave the
three
state.
something? Three.
Oh, I just did it. 370 maybe.
it's that-
But that's the cheapest bracket to buy them at. And like my eldest son lives in South Carolina. He comes home with full privileges of a New York resident. So, keep that family trend going and bring in new sportsmen and mentor those youngsters to teach them the importance of what we do.
Yep.
Not just about what we kill. But we're stewards. We help with management and we feed people.
Yep. Being a good person. I don't know a whole lot of hunters that don't have a good heart. You
Right.
know, it seems to be a common thread.
Yeah,
You can pretty much walk into a room that's got a bunch of hunters in it, and everybody's going to be pretty friendly, and everybody wants to share a story.
Yeah, that's very contrary to the public's opinion of sportsmen.
Yep. It goes back to what you said earlier. We do a very bad job of marketing ourselves, and I see that. I'm already seeing it on social media right now. Some of these Facebook groups, and Facebook's the worst. Some of these groups, I see some of these pictures people are posting and how they're, like taking pictures and laying down next to the deer and taking a selfie with them. And it's like, what are you doing? You're making us look like barbarians, and that's not what we are.
Yeah.
And it's just a bad look, and that might just be me being negative Billy, but I don't think it's good.
No.
Because the wrong person sees that. It could just be one person sees that, and it changes their perception of what hunters are.
Absolutely.
So you got to think before you post this stuff or before you share a story or whatever it is, just think about who might see that and what they might think when you see that.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of my mentors in the photography world, well-known Charlie Alsheimer, who we sadly lost here a couple of years ago, always said, don't put the deer in the back of the truck with the gut incision hanging out, blood all over the place. You take time and pose it. And I have so many family photos when we took time to do that.
Yeah.
That are memories, and it shows that side of us to the public. That, hey, I'm not afraid to show this picture. It's a nice picture. Look, it's my brother, my son, my uncle.
The whole family tree right there.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you're just being tasteful with it, and it doesn't take that much. But I don't think a lot of times, like I'm watching the folks that are posting this stuff, I don't think a lot of them understand what they're doing. I think a lot of them are newer hunters, or nobody's told them, that you should wipe the blood off the mouth or stick the tongue back in, or, there's a bad wound on that side, flip it over and get the picture from the other. Like, I just don't think a lot of people are given that. Like, hey, think about this.
Right.
Because you get some housewife who is kind of not okay with hunting, but then she's flipping through her Facebook page and sees that, and it totally could sour you.
Yeah.
But that's not the whole, that hunter that donates $1,000 a year to conservation organizations and goes to banquets and donates venison. They don't see any of that. All they see is the guy sitting next to the deer with the blood hanging out of the mouth, and it's like that's all you see. You don't see all the other stuff. So put out the image that you want to put out.
Yeah. Social media, I'm learning a lot about that.
You just started following us on Instagram. You're an Instagrammer now.
Well, my kids couldn't believe I did it, but I wanted to visit.
They're like, Dad, you've been hacked.
I can't believe you signed up for it. Well, they let you look, Instagram. Go check out Trent Murphy's Instagram, and they'll let you look for a while, but then you got to sign up. So I signed up.
Yeah.
And then now we do have Venison Donation Coalition on Instagram too. So not a lot of posts there, but we're getting some help, and it's the kind of quality stuff we're talking about. And it's amazing how those the networking grows.
It grows so fast, yeah.
And the people that are seeing it and hopefully come to learn what we do.
Yep.
And that's something we've been lax on. I'll admit it.
Yeah.
I struggle with email.
Hey, you're sitting down here and doing, I'm sure, your first podcast in your life.
Yeah.
And, that's new. And I'll tell you, kind of in closing this up, like I appreciate you. I talked to Mike Edwards there at QDMA, and I saw him put a post up about you guys, and we were getting ready to do our fall fundraiser here. And it just immediately, I was like, oh, that would be something I'd love to get involved in. Mm-hmm. And you were very, very responsive to that, and I appreciate you allowing us to get involved.
Sure.
Because myself, Danny, my brother, and my dad and I, the four of us are kind of the ones behind Pert Near Outdoors, and we all feel, we went to that event last Wednesday. We had a great showing.
Good.
The 75 gallons of beer is almost gone.
Well, wonderful.
And we raised on the door raffles. You sent some shirts, some stickers, things like a couple hats. We did a door raffle. We raised $400 at the door. So we're going to be able to split that between you and QDMA.
Beautiful.
And then there'll be a little over $1,000 from the beer proceeds to split between you two as well. So it's incredibly rewarding to us to be able to be giving back to conservation physically, directly. Mm-hmm. And hopefully we're helping kind of spread the word about what you guys are doing. And we hope to stay involved with you for many years.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good partnership, and we look forward to that. And QDMA certainly stepped forward last year. They had a GoFundMe page, and their new table to
field to fork. Yep.
That program is just up and running, and Mike Edwards has more of a regional responsibility, and Bob Rose.
Yep, up in Rochester.
Rochester QDMA branch is now on our board of directors.
Cool. I got to meet him. He's next on my list.
Yeah. They reached out to all 16 chapters, and they come up with over $6,000 to help us. And, processing a deer is $80 a deer, so do the math. There's 100 deer. That helps. 60, 80 deer. That every dollar helps.
That's right. Yeah, I think sometimes people get, scared away by
right.
big dollars, but just $1.
Right.
Think about that Tim Hortons coffee you bought this morning for $2.50.
Yeah.
It's like you could have not bought that coffee and donated that $2.50 and paid for a pound of meat to be processed.
Yeah.
So,
and with our PayPal donations, you'll get a nice thank you letter with a tax receipt if you choose to claim it as a charitable contribution, as well as a nice window sticker with an American flag.
I like that
and our
sticker.
coalition right in the middle of it.
Yep,
so
it's awesome.
Our emblem.
It's good stuff.
Good stuff. Right.
So I'll put that up in the description of the podcast. I'll put up the links for your website and for the PayPal, so people can easily get to that. And
beautiful.
Definitely encourage everybody to get involved and think about donating a deer this fall and donating a couple dollars to the coalition. So
I have to say, you're a lot older than the last time I saw you.
I am. I hope a little bit more mature. Each year I try to notch the belt a little bit on the maturity level. But
well, that's.
I didn't have facial hair back then either.
Yeah. Well, don't rush it. As people used to tell me, don't rush your life away for retirement, because then all of a sudden you're getting your Medicare card in the mail. It's like, wow, I'm getting old.
Yeah. Enjoy the youth while you got it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. My wife and I are practicing this thing where we don't sleep anymore.
Oh.
With two young kids, we just don't sleep. So we're really just enjoying these years because we remember it all because we're not sleeping. There's just no rest. So
well, good for you.
Yeah,
family time with youngsters, and then the grandsons. That's a whole nother chapter. That's
yep. My dad's a grandfather of two boys now, so and our daughter.
Good.
So he's excited.
Wonderful.
In a handful of years here, this past Saturday was Billy's first time, my son, up at deer camp. He's 2 years old.
Oh, cool.
So Dad took him up there. He let me hunt for the morning, and Dad took my son up, and it was adorable getting to camp Saturday afternoon, and him and Dad, or Billy's wearing his flannel, and him and Dad are sitting there with their, for whatever reason, Billy had to have his hearing protection on and Grandpa had to wear his too.
Yeah.
It's just like,
oh yeah,
it's all just coming around, and it just warms my heart to see that and to see Billy liking being up there. And it's awesome stuff.
It makes your cheeks hurt, all the smiling that goes along with it. For
sure. Life is good.
So many people miss it. They should really get into it.
Yep. No doubt.
Well, very good, Bill.
All right. Thank you so much, Greg.
You're welcome.
Safe travels back to Steuben County.
Yep, 72 miles through the beautiful scenery. Letchworth State Park on the way.
I brought you out here during peak foliage.
Yeah.
So
thank
some
you.
nice fall skies with the storms rolling through.
We're already a little bit beyond down there. So
I was down there a couple weeks ago, and it was pretty red. So
yeah, it was gorgeous. Still is. So
All right.
Okay.
Good luck hunting this year, and
Yes.
hopefully I'm sure we will stay in touch.
Yep,
So
very good.
thank you.
Okay, Bill.
All right. Thank you for listening to this podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion. If you did, make sure to give us a subscribe, a like, and a comment, or a rating and a comment on the whatever podcast app you're listening on. That'd be greatly appreciated and would help us quite a bit to help this podcast continue to grow. We do have some hats for sale on our website. We're in limited supply, so get them before they're gone. Go to pertneroutdoors.com to check them out and get yours today so you can help show your pride in being a Pertneer Pro staffer. We also have discount codes you guys can use on some websites when you're shopping here this fall. We've got a discount with Basemap now, so that will get you a discount on your yearly subscription to get you 20% off. So use Pertneer20 over on basemap.com to get that. Just so you know, you cannot use that promo code on the Apple Play Store, the Apple App Store, or the Google Play Store. So you got to do that through basemap.com. So check that out. We also have a discount code with Austin over at Genesis 3D Printing. If you're buying any mobile 3D printed mobile hunting gear, any bow hangers or accessories for your sticks or saddle setup, he's got some really cool stuff. So check him out over at Genesis 3D Printing. Use promo code PERTNER to get you 10% off there. We are part of the Antler Ice team this year. We're helping them a little bit and using some of their product. So head over to, if you're going to get any rutting, any rutting, if you're going to get any scent, whether it be doe and heat or buck scent for your mock scrapes or doing any scent drags, anything like that, use these guys. It's some local made stuff and frozen and guaranteed fresh. So check that stuff out. If you use our code and you order online, if you use our code AIPRO75, that will get you 10% off your order. And then lastly, we've got all the affiliate links set up over through our link tree is the easiest way to use that. So if you're on Instagram or on Facebook, use the link tree in our bio and click on any of the store links. You've got Cabela's, Camo Fire, Black Ovis. We've got Sitka gear on there, I believe. Trying to think of a few others. Mountain Ops. There's a handful of other companies that we've got on there. So any purchases you make through those websites using our links, we'll get a little commission, and it will help pay for the stuff because it ain't free, folks. So anything that you do to help us there is greatly appreciated. Thanks again. Have a great week. Good luck out there, and keep feeding them.